Yo, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back with another video. We are back with New Japan Pro Wrestling Battle in the Valley, emanating from the San Jose Civic Center in California. Things are happening in California right now. You might be seeing this video way in the future, or you might be seeing it right now, but obviously our thoughts and prayers are with those out in Los Angeles and everywhere else in the world where there's issues. Thoughts and prayers with everybody, but let's get into the pro wrestling, because that's what you guys are here for. You guys are here to distract yourselves from the world and talk about pro wrestling. So, Battle in the Valley, maybe a week off of Wrestle Kingdom, and we're straight back in it with New Japan Pro Wrestling. The very first match is Tomohiro Ishii taking on Gabe Kidd for the New Japan Strong Openweight Championship. Now, this match was made long before the Kenny Omega match was made. So, that is interesting to start with, because I'm pretty sure Gabe Kidd wouldn't have called this match or called out Ishii when he had Kenny Omega a week before when he went 35 minutes with him. That's all I'm saying. But, let's get into the match. So, this match, guys, I wanted to enjoy this match. I enjoyed Ishii's match last week. I enjoyed Gabe Kidd's match last week. 5-star classic Gabe Kidd versus Kenny Omega. Ishii, second best match of the night. 4.5 stars. Versus, was it the Yodatsuji? No, the Konosuke Takeshita match. But this match did not do it for me whatsoever, guys. Whatsoever. It started off okay. It started off how I expected it. But then it went into something else. This was like a mixture of the standard never open weight match and then the match between Shibata and Tanahashi that we got last week with the pure grappling, and then all of a sudden just chop. Because this match was chops and forearms galore. That's all we got. Chops and forearm exchanges. But let's get into a little bit of the play-by-play. Obviously, I'm limiting that now. So we start off with a stare down between both men before they lock up. I think they were expecting the crowd to go wild, which the crowd did react to this moment, because it's Ishii versus Gabe Kidd, and Gabe Kidd is on the rise, and Ishii has a presence in the USA, of course. Both men hit shoulder tackles over and over to each other, but neither man goes down, and that is until Gabe Kidd lands a clothesline. I'm glad Gabe Kidd looked strong in this match, and looked equally as strong as Tomohiro Ishii, because sometimes Ishii looks like an absolute monster against his opponents because of his no-selling, his firing spirits. Spiriting, what is the word now? Fighting spirit. Firing. Because of his fighting spirit and all of that. But in this match, they looked fairly even. Still didn't enjoy the match. But anyway, Gabe Kidd begins to dominate and taunt Ishii. Of course, that's Gabe Kidd. Where even the strike exchanges Gabe Kidd gets the better of in the beginning. That eventually changes to where it's quite even, but still, he at least showed some power. Of course, eventually the fighting spirit of Ishii comes into play, and he just one-shot Gabe Kidd to the floor. Now, this is early on, so I don't mind the strike exchanges here, but I was expecting that to morph into suplexes, and to morph into pro wrestling, and to, morph into what we got at Wrestle Kingdom. I'm not saying to that level, but to what we got in the never open weight match. It wasn't just strikes exchange. There was more to that match. Anyway, then I wrote the match turns into just a strike and chop exchanges with no real meaning, because when I say no real meaning, so the chop and the forearms and all that are meant to weigh down your opponent, not to finish matches. Nobody's ever won a match on a chop, or at least I don't think anyone's ever won a match on a chop. But here, they were just wearing them down without actively seeking that big win. They did in the last couple minutes, but by then it's too late, and that's why I feel like it was meaningless. You didn't wear anyone down and then eventually get the win. You wore them down and, spoiler alert, got to a time limit draw, which was just a little bit disappointing. And then there was Fight Forever chance, and I was like, please don't fight forever. Please don't. If this is what we're getting, please don't. The crowd really loved this, and I even got backlash on a couple people responded to me on Twitter. You guys can follow me at WrestleDrop on Twitter if you'd like to hear some of my opinions as the show is happening live. But some people were saying, am I crazy? That match was awesome, and I've just seen it too many times. I've seen Tomohiro Ishii have this exact match so many times, and it doesn't do it for me. Anyway, they then exchanged suplexes, so I was like, okay, now we're getting on. But nope, they just no-sold those suplexes each, and then one more landed, and they both sold for a bit. So the suplexes were meaningless as well in the end. Ishii then looked for a superplex, but Gabe Kidd reversed this into a choke off the top rope, and then Ishii eventually landed his superplex. Gabe Kidd lands a running knee strike, but Ishii kicks out at one. Of course he did. But then Gabe Kidd kicked out at one from something from Ishii as well. So we then ended up with more meaningless strikes and terrible looking headbutts from both men. You know, the art of a headbutt is difficult to get right. Some people get it right. Some people make it look like you barely want to touch the guy. And of course, I don't want you to hit your head on the other guy's head. We saw what happened with Shibata. But don't do it if it's not going to look good. Simple as that. Like, I wouldn't have cared if the headbutts weren't there. That's how I feel. Gabe Kidd then lands a power driver, but Ishii kicks out at in time, so before the 3 count. With 10 seconds left on the clock now, Ishii lands a brainbuster, but can't make the pin because they wore each other out too much, I guess, with the chops. And the match ends in a time limit draw. Now, I didn't mind the draw. The finish was fine because they are leading up to an Iron Man match. One problem I do have is you're doing another 30-man Iron Man match. So they didn't pin each other once in 30 minutes, but they're going to pin each other multiple times in the next match in 30 minutes. Should have made it like a 60-man Iron Man match. Or not even an Iron Man match. Something else next time. But I guess not. So that wasn't my issue with the match. The fact that it ended the draw to set up another match, perfectly fine. Because often these New Japan Strong shows in America lack a bit of story. Sometimes it's just matches thrown together. Whereas here, there's now a story for the next match. And that happens a couple times throughout the night, which I do appreciate. This match was whatever you can do, I can do from both men. And it ended up just being a strike fest. And it was disappointing. I know people aren't going to like the score that I'm about to give the match. But I gave it 2.5 stars, guys. Average. Average as can be. No storytelling. No psychology. If your psychology and your storytelling is what you can do, I can do better, and you just do strikes the whole time, not really good. If it's what you can do, I can do better, but you change it up, I'm down with that. So there was a misstep on that. I've spent a lot of time on this match now, so let's move on to some of the other matches. 2.5 stars, like I said. We then moved on to the West Coast Wrecking Crew. I think they're now trying to call themselves, or they have already, the World Class Wrecking Crew. Apparently they turned heel, which is kind of disappointing. I don't know if they're better as heels. I don't know much about them. But the match I did see with them, boy, was that good. Was that really good. Last time out, if you guys remember, at New Japan Strong Style Evolved last year, end of last year, I loved that match with West Coast Wrecking Crew. I absolutely loved it. Something about it was just classic pro wrestling. Get that hot tag. Finally do it. They finally won the title that they've been trying to get. They've tried multiple times and never been able to do. And they did it. I loved it. And then they seemingly turned heel after the match when they attacked Rocky Romero. But I didn't think that was a heel turn. But apparently it was. Apparently this whole time that was a heel turn. So that is what it is, I guess. Okay. So let's get into the match. Because the match wasn't bad, actually. It was pretty decent. It was alright. So Roppongi, I'm going to call them as, because it's obviously now Roppongi Revice, so it's obviously Joel Nelson and Royce Isaacs taking on Roppongi Revice, Rocky Romero, and Yo. I'm just going to call them Revice when I talk about them, because saying Roppongi Revice and West Coast Wrecking Crew, it's just too much. I'm also going to say WCWC for West Coast Wrecking Crew. Anyway, Revice then gets an early advantage, and they both go for dives to the outside, but they get caught by both of WCWC and hit with a pair of suplexes on the outside. So it was a good start by Roppongi Revice, and then obviously West Coast got involved. So West Coast then landed some nice tag team offense onto Rocky Romero, but then Yo makes the save. Yo eventually gets the hot tag that he's been seeking and takes out the West Coast, but that doesn't last too long either. Quick, fast-paced teamwork from Roppongi Revice throughout the match, which I absolutely loved. It kind of gave me Machine Gun, Motor City Machine Gun vibes, in a way. But different, but in a way. Just the way they were moving around the ring. I really like that. Then Jorel locks in a crossface, while Isaac locks in a half Boston Crab onto Yo. But then Rocky Romero, eventually, the legal man, eventually gets out of the hold. We then get a backstabber into an assisted Falcon Arrow by Roppongi Revice, and I'm thinking it's all over here, but no, Isaacs makes the save. Isaacs then uses his championship title belts behind the wrist back onto, I think it was Yo, allowing West Coast to land their finisher and get the victory. Pretty decent match. I enjoyed it. 3 stars. Nothing bad, nothing fantastic. pretty good, pretty decent stuff. I'm gonna, just a decent match, no complaints whatsoever. I do hope that, as much as I don't know if they should have turned heel, I do hope that West Coast get a nice run with these tag titles. Don't know who's going to take it from them either. I don't know. That'll be interesting to see. We then have a women's elimination match, and this is going to be a quick one, just like the match was a quick one, and the match was a nothing match. But we had Viva Van, who has apparently signed with AEW. I had no idea. And she was teaming up with Express Nexus Venice. What a name. Which was Hanako, Maika, and Mina Shirakawa taking on, and then they took on Anna Jay, Trisha Dora, AZM, and Johnny Robbie. Now, this was an elimination match, so basically, you could get eliminated by pinfall, submission, and also going over the top rope. Overbooking. I think Japan has done this before, or New Japan specifically. Overbooking. Not needed. Anyway, it was a K match. It is what it is. It wasn't long. I didn't do any play-by-play because a lot was happening and people were just getting eliminated left, right, and center. And it was happening all too quick. But we did get down to Anna Jay and Hanako. But eventually Hanako eliminated Anna Jay and getting her team the victory. Fairly quick match. Unfortunately, it just didn't do anything on this card. Like, it really did not. It didn't need to be on there. And I understand why they had it on there. They really are trying with the women's division to a certain extent. They don't give them time, but they're trying. I gave this as much time as they did, so 2.25 stars. Let's move on. Disappointing, but let's move on. We then had El Phantasmo, the current New Japan World Television Champion, taking on Jeff Cobb, the former New Japan World Television Champion. Of course, El Phantasmo won it at Wrestle Kingdom in that fatal 4-way match. Jeff Cobb dominates this match early on with his strength and power. It's quite obvious what you can expect from this match. El Phantasmo with the high flying and speed, Jeff Cobb with the absolute power. There's a point where Jeff Cobb tries to land his like swinging power slam type thing, but El Phantasmo reverses that into a DDT. That was really, really nice. Phantasmo tries to get Cobb on his shoulders a couple times and do that airplane spin / I don't know what type of slam that he does, but he couldn't do it. He didn't have the strength to do it at this point in the match, and this allows Cobb to fire back. Cobb tries to land a standing moonsault that he does, but El Phantasmo gets his knees up, and this is where he gets the chance to lift up Jeff Cobb. Pretty good stuff from El Phantasmo, and lands his like airplane spin neck breaker type move, but Cobb kicks out at 1. So all of that just to kick out at 1. What a way to bury the guy, man. You could have at least made it worth the while to pick him up and drop him. You didn't need to kick out at 1. And also, this is the second or the third time in the show someone has kicked out at 1. It happens another time, if not another two or three times. Disappointing stuff. We don't need that in every match. It makes it irrelevant. Oh, he kicked out at 1. Who cares now? That move is buried, and everyone else can do it. So what does it matter? Anyway, El Phantasmo then lands his Thunder Kiss 86, but Cobb kicks out as well. They then roll to the outside. El Phantasmo with a big dive through the ropes, sending him over the barricade, sending Cobb over the barricade. Cobb then walks around. El Phantasmo gets on top of the ring of the turnbuckle, jumps over the barricade onto Cobb, taking him out, and the ref starts counting. Now we're getting real close to that 20 count, and Cobb realizes he can't win this. So what does he do? He just throws one of the young lions at ringside into El Phantasmo, stopping him from getting to the ring. Therefore, double count out. Therefore, it's a draw. Therefore, Cobb is more likely to get his rematch. I like that finish, actually. I know it's a second draw of the night, but that was a really, really interesting, innovative, something I've never seen before finish. And that was really cool. Countouts can often be boring, but that was an interesting countout, So I'm cool with that. I was happy with that. Really good stuff. If it wasn't for the countout, this match would have had a higher star rating. Not that the countout was bad, but I just feel you can't give a massive star rating for a countout. Sometimes you can, sure. In this case, the match wasn't very long because it was for the TV title, so they are limited to 15 minutes anyway. So 3-star match, nothing to be ashamed of. Pretty good stuff. As you'll notice though, the show doesn't really have high star ratings. The main event was the highest rating I gave, but it was just the show didn't hit as much as it should have, and I think that is sometimes the case with these American shows. The crowd just feels different. For me, the crowd is a big factor in all of this. But anyway, we then had a retirement match for Sumie Sakai. Okay, I don't know who Sumie Sakai is. That probably is my fault, probably disappointing of me, but it is what it is. So we had Hiromi Takahashi and Mayu Iwatani and Yuka Sakazaki versus House of Torture, Evil and Show, and then Sumie Sakai. Why she picked House of Torture, who knows, but she has a relationship with them in real life, so that's why she picked them, but it came back to bite her in the ass. So originally, Evil said he's done with New Japan. So the question is, what's he going to be then? He didn't come out with Sho or Sumie Sakai. Sumie Sakai. And we thought, okay, maybe he is gone. But no, he just attacks everyone from behind and takes them out. The dynamics from this match was weird because one team had 2 women and a man, the other team had 2 men and a woman. I found that weird. I found the dynamics very weird. Nothing really worked. Nothing was smooth. Anyway, we then had Takahashi and Sumie Sakai, where she looked for quick roll-ups on Takahashi. They weren't doing too much damage to each other because obviously there's a thing of respect between them two right now. Evil slides Susie the chair, but she decides she's not wanting to fight Takahashi in that way. She's wanting to fight fairly. Evil then takes out Mayu and Yuka, receiving boos from the crowd. Obviously, you're beating up a woman, damn it. Can't be doing that. Not in a match. No, can't be doing that. Takashi then locks in the Inoki stretch and starts a chain going all the way into the crowd. This was me, like, I see where this match is. I see what type of this match this is. I'm going to look at it in this fashion now. Because if I was trying to look at this as a pro wrestling match, I would have given the 0 stars. But I saw what type of match it was. I saw the purpose of it. And I sat back and I was like, let me let it be. Let me let it be. So basically it started a chain, essentially pulling leverage or exerting or extending the leverage, I don't know what, onto that hold all the way into the crowd. The crowd was milking it. The crowd showed why they are marks, why we're all marks. And yeah, anyway, moving on. We then get a bit of action between the 3 women. That was pretty good stuff. That was probably the best stuff of the match, actually. But eventually Sumi lands a smash mouth, but House of Torture pulls out the ref before the 3. So yeah, Sumi then tries to keep fighting, but eventually she starts fading away as she's trying to fight all 3 people, trying to land strikes. And then eventually all 3 of them land a strike on her, all 3 per no, but she kicks out, which was pretty surprising. I thought that would have been a nice way to end it. But eventually House of Torture still stay out there. I think they got hit with a whole bunch of moves. And then we get a moonsault by Mayu, and then Takahashi lands his finisher for the 3 count. 1, 2, 3. She is officially retired. That was Sumie Sakai's final match. I did not know how to rate this match because it wasn't a typical pro wrestling match, and it served a purpose, a different purpose. I gave it 2.5 stars. Just put it in average. Can't be bad, can't be good. Because I feel like if I give it a low score, it's kind of disrespectful to Sumie Sakai. And some of the action was alright. So, yeah, let's leave it at that. 2.5 stars for that match. We then had, now we're starting into the real action. We had Konosuke Takeshita, the current Neverweight Open Champion, of course, also the AEW International Champion, taking on Kushida, but only for the Never Openweight title. So, I expected a bit more from this match, I'm going to be honest. I think they had further gears to go into. I think they had more stages they could go into, but they didn't quite get there. And it's probably because Takeshita has wrestled so much in the past couple of weeks. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, if I'm being honest. And he obviously, it seemed to me like he was letting Kushida do all the work tonight and him just do the sell job, which is perfectly fine. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He has been putting banger after banger after banger on for us. So fair enough. So it started off with some back and forth wrestling, but then Takeshita lands the Takeshita line and Kushida rolls out the ring. But when he's out the ring, Kushida fights back and he locks in an armbar on the apron and then begins working on the arm of Takeshita, which was a big factor throughout this night. Working that arm, working that left arm of Takeshita, obviously in preparation for the hoverboard finisher of Kushida. Takeshita then tries to fight back, but Kushida avoids and locks in an ankle lock, which Takeshita fights out of and lands a pair of lariats for himself. Kushida then tries to go for a handspring a little bit later on, but then gets caught in a Blue Thunder Bomb for 2 count. Sorry, every time you say the Blue Thunder Bomb, you have to add a bit of Michael Cole to it. That was probably terrible Michael Cole, but you just gotta add a bit to it. Takeshita then goes for a top rope senton, but Kushida gets out of the way and locks in an armbar, which Takeshita eventually fights out of and lands his bastard driver, which doesn't end the match either. Kushida then lands a Hurricane Rana driver from the top rope, followed by a Back to the Future, but only gets a 2 count on Takeshita. Kushida looked very strong in this match, and I'm not sure he needed to look as strong as he did, but like I said earlier on, Takeshita was probably letting him do all the work and letting Takeshita kind of rest a bit, if I'm being honest here. He kicked out of one from a lariat from Takeshita. Another kick out at one happens, I think, in nearly every match in this match. It happened actually in the Sakai match. Forgot to mention that. But yeah. Takeshita then finally lands Raging Fire out of nowhere. Kind of a flat finish, if I'm being honest. It didn't build to a finish for Takeshita. But decent match between both men, with Kushida dominating most of the match with his limb work and submission work, but Takeshita ultimately coming out on top. But I do think this is part of a bigger story, him working the arm, because I do think Takeshita is going to start breaking down piece by piece, considering he signed for 3 different companies right now. And that, just being honest, that's going to be the story going forward. 3.5 stars for this match. Was enjoyable, nothing wrong with it, definitely better than some of the other matches so far, therefore it has to be 3.5 stars. After the match, though, Takeshita challenged Tanahashi to a match at Windy City Riot in Chicago, I think, next month or the month after. That's going to be Tanahashi's last ever match in America, and I think Takeshita is a really, really good person for that, being that he has that audience in America, and that Tanahashi, of course, will have his last match, or not his last match, but his last American match against someone signed to his company and someone who has an audience in America. Makes perfect sense. We then moved on to the semi-main event, which was Hechicero versus Zack Sabre Jr. I was expecting big things from this match, because both absolutely technical wrestling workhorses, and they did that, but I felt they left more for another match. Again, they keep doing this, they keep having so many matches. I felt they left some room open for another match. I'm ready for this technical wrestling masterclass. I got some good technical wrestling, don't know if it was a masterclass though. So throughout the match, there was just various exchanges being held between both men, over and over and over, moving from one to another, leg exchanges, arm exchanges, just holds all over the place, constantly moving, constant mat work, and that was brilliant. But there is a point where you got to move from that and get it exciting, and then move back to that. And they didn't quite do that enough for me. Or didn't quite execute that well enough for me. And I think that might have been the problem. Guys, if it sounds like I'm complaining a lot about this show, it's more that I'm giving my reasons for the rating. It's not that the match was bad. I just want people to understand why I give it what I give it. Simple as that. But eventually things do pick up for a little bit and some strikes start flying, but that doesn't last very long as Zack Sabre Jr. runs in, charges in, and eats a backbreaker for his troubles. And we get some more back and forth technical wrestling from both men. Hechicero lands a running knee, followed by a springboard clothesline for a 2 count. There it starts getting a little bit interesting. Zack Sabre Jr. hits a Zack driver, but as soon as Hechicero kicks out, he locks in the armbar, and Hechicero gets to the ropes in time. We get a headbutt followed by a springboard dropkick and a knee to the face of Zack Sabre Jr. for a 2 count. So again, another 2 count for Zack Sabre, or for Hechicero on the champion. Zack Sabre Jr. then locks in a jackknife pin attempt and gets the victory after about 20 odd minutes of wrestling. I think it was that long. Pretty decent stuff. Perhaps an underwhelming finish, I did say. But great technical wrestling match. 2 of the best in the world in that department when it comes to technical wrestling. I just think they lacked maybe that little bit of stand up and fight now that we've done the technical wrestling. I think it was a bit too much on the mat. And I like mat work. But if it's going to get a higher rating, then that's what it's going to be. And I gave this match 3.75 stars for its troubles. It was good. The technical wrestling was excellent. It just needed another thing just to kick it into the next gear, and it would have been a 4-star. We then moved on to our main event, and I'm glad they gave the IWGP Jr Heavyweight Championship some room to shine, and it was El Desperado, the new champion, because of course, unfortunately, Doki broke his arm in their match at Wrestle Kingdom, taking on Taiji Ishimori. Very good match here. Very good match. I expected a good match, and that's what I got. Back and forth start from both men, with neither men really getting the advantage here. Desperado then goes for a suicide dive, but Ishimori catches him with a kick to the head. That was really well done. Ishimori then starts targeting the arm of Desperado, in preparation for the bone lock submission. But of course, Desperado then targets the leg of Ishimori in preparation for his stretch muffler. So there was a battle of submissions here in this match. We then get a handspring attempt from Ishimori, but Desperado catches him into a back suplex, which he follows up with a brainbuster and a 2 count. This was a hard-hitting match, as there was a moment when Ishimori just pulled down Desperado on the apron and then pulled his arm straight, like his whole body and arm into the apron. That was like, okay, that's a bit rough. Well, definitely a rough landing. Ishimori then lands a gutbuster variation onto Desperado for a 2 count, but he hurts his knee in the process. Of course, the knee that El Desperado has been targeting, or the knee and the leg that El Desperado has been targeting. Ishimori goes for a 450 attempt, but misses and landed on his feet, which hurts his knee again, adding to the fact that stretch muffler might come into handy here in the match. Ishimori then locks in his bone lock, but Desperado turns it into a stretch muffler, which both men then do a little bit of trying to power out from Ishimori, and then it turns into a bastard driver by Desperado. And then, eventually, after a bit more of the submission exchanges, the match doesn't end in one of those submissions. In fact, it ends after a J Driller, and then he follows it up with I think they called it a PJ Loco. It's probably called something else, by Desperado, and gets the victory 1-2-3. Good match, back and forth action from both men, high flying to technical. It had everything that you needed from this match, and a good story with good psychology. They're both working the limbs that they need to finish off the match. Didn't even finish off that way, but it told a story. It gave some psychology to the match. It wasn't just doing moves for the sake of doing moves. It was, let's do this in preparation for something, which I really, really appreciate. With that being said, 4 stars for that match. Enjoyable match. Enjoyable. Maybe it could have been a bit better. No, enjoyable match. Good match. 4 stars. Why am I trying to overanalyze now? Simple as that. The show itself, enjoyable as well. Perhaps could have been better. Perhaps the lows were pretty low, and perhaps it felt like it was coasting for large parts of the match. And that is probably because of travel, probably because of Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty that happened. So I can imagine why they were in third gear the whole time. I can see why, and I don't blame them one bit. So, with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed the pay-per-view review. Hope you guys enjoyed the pay-per-view as well. This week, I'm going to be trying to do some more. Now that we got some time until the next couple pay-per-views, we are going to be going back in time again. So I'm going to try and do Starrcade 84. I'm going to try and do WrestleMania 1. But before that, I'm going to do best matches of 1983. And it's not going to be just matches that are reviewed on the channel. It's going to be other matches that I've watched that I'm going to include in there. Because obviously we've only watched one show from 1983. And I'm not going to go watch any others. There isn't any other big notable ones anyway. So, with that being said, expect that video this week. That's going to be something it's actually something I just thought of yesterday. That after I've done a year, let's go back and look at my top 10 matches. It might be a nice place to look back on the year and see what was good, see what was bad. And also, it might be a nice way to see what were the big matches of each year in however long it takes us to get to a good amount of years. With that being said, we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.